We're back at Loose on the Lead, and that's always what it is. And happy to welcome Maya Englehart, Jeremiah Englehart, and in from Finger Lakes, of course, and not going back, although you do run plenty of horses back at home.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of home,
I wanted to start off the show. I asked these guys if it was okay if I said hello to Raylan, CJ, Anna, Eli, and Little Jax, and my lovely wife Robin back home. I just wanted to say hello.
Well, I'll say hello.
have you guys had any children this week?
No children. We didn't get her back on full heat, so five.
Gonna bring her right back, or you and Artie Magnuson. You and Artie Magnuson could start a football team.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm not gonna. I don't care if I don't beat my dad at is how many kids I have. He has 6, and we're perfect with 5.
Yeah, 5.
So, yeah,
5 is enough,
yeah,
as opposed to 8 is enough.
Yeah, 5 is plenty.
Well, 8 might be enough. Is 8 enough wins at Saratoga this summer?
We got to try for a couple more. I'm humbled by everything that's just everyone, the support I've had, and everyone saying, congratulating me and sending me texts and phone calls. It's been a great meet. But I would still love to win a couple more.
Well, and we go back to the beginning of the meet for you, and I think about Here Comes Rosie not being elevated by a DQ, which I think she probably should have. So there's even one more win that you might have had, and which I was wondering if you, when that happened, if you worried, oh my God, it's going to be one of those kinds of meets.
Actually, no. Every time something like that happens, I always go back to the 2013 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and I'm wondering how many more do I have to, give up before that, wears off a little bit. As you know, I was put up on a DQ in that race, but it was one of those calls. I think it could have went both ways. It's funny that race started off the meet of DQs, and it was there's been many different disqualifications and infractions since that first race, but she seems she's still a maiden, so hopefully we'll go down to Belmont and break her maiden there.
Well, certainly plenty of maiden breakers. We think about, you mentioned Anna Ray, and that was really a pleasant story. The fact that named for your daughter. Talk a little bit about the maiden breakers and winning up here, particularly when it comes to the owners and the pleasure that's associated for them with breaking maidens up at Saratoga.
Well, I think anytime you get to run a 2-year-old and break your maiden here in Saratoga, all the owners, it's become a very popular 2-year-old maiden special weight meet, and even though that was a maiden 65, the way she broke her maiden was kind of special. And it was funny, I had her slated to run a week before, and I had my family up and was hoping that they were going to be able to watch her run, and the race didn't go, so we waited for the next race in the book, and I enjoyed the race by myself. But like you said, it was my daughter Raylan's birthday, her 5th birthday, and I got just sitting there soaking that in, watching her come down the stretch was pretty special for me. I made sure I enjoyed the whole stretch, and I was kidding around with Larry Colmus afterwards, because that's all my kids say now in the house and it's Anna Ray is running away. That's all I hear all day long.
And they're all probably asking to have a horse named after them.
Oh yeah, my wife is actually still waiting for hers.
And we'll juggle it up for the guys in the control room. Let's take a look at the May Flowers race. This is going back to the 22nd, just a week and a half or so ago. May Flowers, this was the 8th career start, and she gets it done in here, being the number 6 horse. Is Mayflower, or number 6 at 7-2, and gets it done pretty nicely down the stretch. But as I say, the 8th career start, the kind of a light bulb kind of going on for her now.
I think it's many different things. She definitely benefited the way the turf was playing with the rails being out. It seemed like inside and speed, you just didn't want to be there. I thought she would break her maiden, 2, 3, 4 starts ago, but she didn't, and I'm glad she waited till now. But I think she definitely, had a little bit of an advantage from her, running style that day. She's very tactical. She's been close to the lead. She's been off the lead. It was disappointing because I really liked her to start before. I gave her a little bit of time and brought her back for that race, and I thought 5.5 would hit her right in the head, and she got off. She just broke really flat-footed, and this race, she got pinched a little bit at the start, but it probably helped us, with the way the race shaped up. So.
All right, let's take a look at the Yadu now, because that has to be, in a good meet, this has to be the highlight. This was last Friday, $150,000 on the line for the state-bred fillies and mares, going a mile and a 16th. The Teacups is going to be the number 2 horse, and we'll get it done in here. And I didn't have it in my mix, but I'll tell you, as they went to the gate, I looked, I said, you know what, the Teacups looks live. So I boxed up a little exacta. You're beating Discreet Mark in here, which is very notable. And with that one out of the mix, I thought it would be a huge triple, but I don't know. Was your team playing some triples? Because it didn't come back as well as I thought. But this is a nice performance, beating, as I say, a horse like Discreet Mark in here.
Yeah, my team definitely does not listen to any of my handicapping selections. This is a filly that I really got to give my team credit for this race. My assistant Erica Wagger and Carol Fisher, who went out on her own, and she's been helping me get on some horses in the morning. They've done a really nice job getting her to this race. We used that 1X allowance going a little bit further at the beginning of the meet, kind of with this race and as our goal, cutting back in distance, and we really had her ready, sitting on a good race here. And I thought on numbers she was definitely playable. Obviously she had to run her best race to beat Discreet Mark, and I needed Discreet Mark to come back a little bit, and she did. And I don't know if there was an excuse that day or not, but like again, the rails were out. If you're laying close and you're kind of inside, it just definitely seemed like there was a little bit of a disadvantage to do that. So I don't mind when things go in my favor like that, because there's plenty of times when they don't too.
The other way. You also, of course, part of the storyline during Friday afternoon was Luis Saez going on that 3-race tear. And this is really the Luis Saez story. I mean, obviously, people are focused on Arad Ortiz and his outlandish success at this meet, and then Johnny Velasquez and Javier Castellano doing what they do. But sitting behind those stories is Luis Saez, who, for people that have to, think back a little bit, just a year ago, his younger brother, killed on the racetrack at Indiana. And it took a toll on Saez, and it took him a good 4 to 6 months, it seems, to kind of really find some equilibrium and resume what had been an ascendancy of a career. He is as good as anybody anywhere. Yeah. And here's an example of him coming from off the pace. He is equally tremendous up on the front end. On the main track, on grass, to me, he is the best, journeyman going right now.
Yeah, I've had probably 50% of my wins here at the meet that he's ridden have been because he was on the horse's back. I mean, he's smart. He's aggressive when he has to be. He's patient when he has to be. And like you said, I mean, it started in Gulfstream, I think, this winter, when he just kind of took off. And he's very smart. He puts horses in the right spots. I mean, there's been plenty of times when I've said, I asked him in the paddock, Luis, you think we're going to be close? There's not a whole lot of speed. And he's like, well, I think this horse and maybe this horse will show some speed. Let's see how they break and kind of go from there. And sure enough, he was right on. I mean, just really a headsy jock, and I hope I can continue to get him. And he doesn't get, I notice some other people are starting to use him now more and more, and he's going to be a household name for a long time.
I agree. And you talk about teacups, the improvement in this horse, and there's some other winners that you've had at the meet, Run a Dub, for instance, and so forth. And we talk about maiden specials, that's one thing, but in terms of taking claimers and taking horses, that you have to evaluate, they're not coming to you fresh and new and shiny. They're coming to you with a couple of dings and dents. And taking a horse like this that was acquired at one point for $16,000, and to continue to get this horse to improve at this stage as a 5-year-old mare. David Fawkes was talking yesterday about sheer drama, and how only now as a mature 5-year-old is she really fulfilling all the potential that she had. And when you have horses that you acquire from somebody else, you got to figure out what maybe has gone wrong, what you can fix, and what you can improve.
Yeah, and when horses come into the barn, it doesn't matter if they're, the 2-year-olds just coming in or the older horses. It's a fresh start. And, with the teacups, I benefited from a little bit of bad luck for Joan Scott as well. I mean, I was going to take the horse for her and run her here last year, and she entered the filly twice, and both times it rained. And she scratched both times, and then she says, "You know what? You want to just keep the filly and the owner?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to train her." And she was working well when she came in. Then she won here, and and it just happened. A little bit of luck and went my way. And Carlos, the groom for her, and has done a great job with her. And where she was this winter with Keith Dickey, I got to go down and see her this winter, and I mean she looked phenomenal. So good all-around team effort, and that's kind of how she played out. It's now hopefully she has a few good more races, and will be a contender in that division for a year or two.
And talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts. I want to know, because you are a guy looking at the entries. You run a lot at Finger Lakes. You got some at Presque Isle. You already talked about the Breeders' Cup win, and when we're down in the studio the rest of the year, I have Tony Kalo by phone very often, and I asked after the Breeders' Cup win, and certainly there was a lot of cheering at Finger Lakes. I understand. But talk about the nuts and bolts of during a month like this, where you have horses entered here, out there at Finger Lakes. I saw you taking advantage of some of the social aspect Thursday night at the Serling Show, down at the Parting Glass. So how does it work going back and forth during the month?
Well, both my assistants, my uncle Steve back at Finger Lakes and Erica here, they can't wait for Saratoga to get over, because I'm it's pressure packed. Everyone wants to win here, and I'm kind of starting to enjoy it a little bit now after the 8th win. So maybe the next 10 days of racing or so, they'll get a little bit of a break. But I always look forward to Saratoga at the beginning, and then I'm always looking forward to end at the end of the meet, because it's a shorter drive to Belmont, but I end up doing it more often. So I'm going back and forth. Whether I could come here for a day and go back the next day to Finger Lakes, and I do a lot of traveling. I probably should have a job with UPS or FedEx or something like that. I'd probably be much better at that. But I mean, it's I love the meet here. The atmosphere here is second to none. I mean, just look at yesterday. American Pharoah, win or lose. I mean, it's the hangover day today for sure. But it's also the graveyard of champions and favorites. So, but no, I enjoy the meet, and I think everyone does for a little bit of time, and just absolutely blessed to have a good meet.
It's also becoming as much of a family affair here at Saratoga as it is out at Finger Lakes.
Yeah, my dad and my youngest brother, or not youngest, but Jeffrey, the second youngest, has got his first win up here too. So.
Very good.
Speaking of first wins, before we wrap up, I want to take you back to your first graded stake win. We're going to roll a tape of the Bed of Roses, and for this we go back to 2011, Tamarind Hall. Do the call, Maya.
Well, at this point of the race right here, she was coming into the race so well, and I remember calling my dad and saying, I really want to take a shot in this race. And he was standing next to another trainer out at Finger Lakes, and he's like, well, I don't know if I'd do that. And I just thought, maybe if she had things her way, and she benefited from the track. I think the track was back right that day, and I don't think Hilda's passionate, enjoyed it. But right here, I thought it was a really bold move by Dave Cohen just to go up, split horses, and take the lead. And I remember I was watching the downstairs clubhouse TV where no one else was watching it, and for about another 3 or 4 months I watched it from that TV forever until I never want to race there again, and then I had to start watching it from another TV. But I always thought that was going to be my lucky TV forever, and it wasn't. But
TV.
On the betting side, I've done things like that.
I'm horrible.
Oh my God.
But no, that was really just a race that kind of, set things off a little bit. I got to enjoy that. It was my first graded stakes win. I remember calling my dad afterwards on the way home, and I was like, Dad, have you ever won a graded stake? And he looked, and he answered me. He's like, well, have you ever won 3,000 races? And I said, good point. I'm still about 3,000 away from him. So.
Well, getting closer all the time. Although he keeps winning, so it's sort of a moving target.
And before we let you go, I have to apologize that I ruined your assist record over at the jockey, your assist total over at the jockey horseman basketball game. I've already talked about the layup where I missed everything and humiliated myself, but Jeremiah fed me there. I was wide open. I play all winter long. It's one of those things where I'm sure everyone in the audience said, "Oh, isn't that cute? He plays the charity game." It's like, "Oh."
Seth, I do the same thing. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, you had 60 rebounds." Like, yeah, it's easy to get 60 rebounds when you miss 50 shots.
And also against the competition.
Yeah, right. If I could say one more thing, I didn't get to say to Dave when he left, is Daily Racing Form, they in NASCAR now? He had looked like he was one of the drivers.
No,
with this
The logos, all the sponsorships.
I thought he was going to races this afternoon.
Speaking of the races, I got to ask you about Wednesday. Appian, a Roman ruler filly that the Johnsons bred and Neil Allred owns.
Yeah, this is a filly that we purchased privately over the wintertime, and you know, I kind of thought that she would be more of a Finger Lakes horse, but her last few breezes has kind of been pretty nice. I worked her against a nice older horse last week, and she worked really well. So we're gonna give her a shot in this race. It's
Nice.
probably definitely a step up for her, but you know, I definitely think she's you know, going to be forwardly placed and should make a pretty good showing.
The 6th, Appian, in the 7th on Wednesday.
Well,
as
you're on a
we
roll.
Start
You're on a
closing
roll. Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Hopefully close. How many more do you have before we wrap?
Wins or
Or
starts?
how many more starts?
I'm gonna. I've probably got about 7 or 8 more starts.
Wow.
And I'm hoping two wins. I'd like to get to 10 now that I'm here. I sent Kieran McLaughlin a text the other day, and I just copied that YouTube video of Michael Jordan when he just goes like this, and everything he puts up. I mean, that's kind of how you feel. You just throw it up, and it goes in.
And it goes
So,
in.
Yeah.
Well, happy for your success, and
Thank you.
certainly one of the most popular. You can follow Maya on Twitter too. Right?
Yeah, JC Racing on at JC Racing on Twitter.
Very good. Jeremiah, again, appreciate your visit.
Thanks,
Congratulations. Good luck going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. You always need that. in
I'll
this
try.
game.
I'll try to
One
make up for it
direction.
Yeah.
next year at the basketball game. I'll get you a couple assists, maybe.
The
All
layup
right.
missed around the world.